On today's episode, we are going to take a look at Amazon versus Alibaba to see which is a better investment. So let's get started. Like I mentioned, today I'm going to take a look at two companies, Amazon and Alibaba, and I pretty much want to see which one is the better investment for me. So the best way for me to decide which one is better is to create some form of point system and give points to the company where I believe is doing better. So we're going to take a look at things like market cap growth, revenue breakdown, revenue growth, margins growth, overall business, balance sheet, and valuation. And just because one of this company is going to be the winner does not mean that the other one is a bad investment. To me, is pretty much to find which one I think will be a better investment for me. But that does not mean that the other company is a bad investment. Both of these companies can actually be great investments. So good luck to anybody who is long in both of these positions. And before we go any further, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe, the thumbs up, and the bell. It helps the small channel out so much, and I truly appreciate all the support I'm getting from you guys. And if you guys want to get in contact with me, feel free to find me on Twitter, on Discord. All that information is down in the description below. Both my Twitter and Discord are free. If you guys just want to come and hang out and ask questions, just feel free to do so. And this is actually something I want to start every Monday. I want to call it Monday Match. So Monday Matches is just every Monday I will pick two different companies depending on what you guys want to see. If you guys don't really give me any feedback, I'll pretty much just decide on my own. But for next Monday Match, what do you guys want to see? I was thinking either maybe Google versus Amazon, maybe get into the esports of Activision versus EA Games, or maybe just do something completely different like Microsoft versus Apple. So let me know in the comments below, guys, which one of these do you guys want to see next? Alright, so the first thing we're going to take a look is just pretty much the market cap growth for both these companies. Alright, so let's take a look at Amazon's market cap first. Amazon's market cap right now is about $1.2 trillion. And if you invested in this company 5 years ago, you would have had returns of about 478%. Way above SPY or the S&P 500. The S&P 500, if you invested 5 years ago, you would have gotten about a 45% return. Now let's take a look at Alibaba. Alibaba, if you invested 5 years ago, you would have gotten 127% return on your investment, which isn't bad, right? Like I said, both of these companies could actually end up being good investments. Obviously, Amazon, if you invested 5 years ago, was the better return, but both these companies have returned more than the overall market. But obviously the first point here, I'm gonna have to give market cap to Amazon because we see that almost close to 500% return in the past 5 years. So now let's take a look at revenue breakdown for these companies. And the best way to find revenue breakdown for any company is to pretty much just take a look at the company's most recent 10Q report or 10K report or just their earnings presentation. All right, so next let's take a look at revenue breakdown. And the best way to find anything about revenue breakdown is either the 10Q report or the 10K report or earnings presentations of any of these companies. So first I started to look at Amazon, and Amazon was, I didn't like how they presented. If we take a look at their earnings presentation, they pretty much divide their sectors into three parts: North America, International, and AWS. And this is not what I want to see. I want to see more of services type revenue breakdown opposed to region type breakdown. And I had to dig deep and actually take a look at their most recent 10Q report, but I found the answer. So here I'm in Excel in this file that I created, and let's take a look at just the 6 different segments of revenue that Amazon collects. So we'll start off with the biggest, and that's online stores. Online store makes up 49% of this company's total revenue. And online stores is pretty much what Amazon sells to you directly from Amazon. So for example, the Amazon Kindle or the Amazon Fire Stick, whatever is made out of that comes from online stores, whatever they sell directly to you. The second biggest is third-party seller services, and this makes up 19% of total revenue. And third-party seller services is, let's say, when an independent seller posts on Amazon, they either pay Amazon in some form of fees due to listing fees, maybe it might be some form of seller's fees, maybe some form of shipping fees. So that's all the fees that come from other parties selling on Amazon, and that makes up 19%. The third biggest is AWS, and this is Amazon's web services, which is amazing. This is where you have their clouding, and it now makes up 14% of this company's total revenue. And the amount of growth that has seen is pretty impressive. We'll even have to take a look at it later on. The next is subscription, which makes up 7%, and this is, let's say you have Amazon Music or Amazon Prime subscription, Amazon Audible. All these types of subscription services make up 7% of total revenue, and again, that's actually a pretty big amount. Next, we have physical stores. Physical stores makes up 6%, and physical stores are, for example, let's say you go to Whole Foods Market. Is that the store where the store Amazon just bought? If you go and purchase from there, that is this part of revenue. There's other physical stores that you might that Amazon might own where they provide this type of revenue. And then the last is other, and that makes up 5% of total revenue. And other is pretty much any other market that this company is in. For example, any type of advertisement is here in other. Twitch Prime would be also here in other. So anything that does not make up any other part of this would be considered another. But there's so many different things that Amazon is in that it'll be very hard for them to really distinguish the revenue from those sectors. All right, so now that we know Amazon's revenue breakdown, let's take a look at Alibaba's revenue breakdown. Alibaba was actually pretty kind to give us their breakdown in their earnings presentation. Amazon, I hope you're listening. This is something you should definitely do. I think they used to do this back in their previous earnings. Not sure why they stopped, but Amazon, let's take a look at total revenue breakdown for Alibaba. 62% of Alibaba's revenue comes from something that's called China Commerce Retail. And before I go any further, right, I want to explain the main difference between Amazon and Alibaba. It's not really easy to compare the two because they're not apples to apples. Where Amazon is more business to consumer, where their customers are pretty much just regular people like you and I, Alibaba is more a business to business model, where most of their customers are actually other companies. And this is a big difference because usually that type of business usually has higher margins and they have just different sectors that they're involved in. So like I said, 62% of it comes from China's commerce retail. 27% pretty much comes from customers management. So it's when they manage some other type of other businesses, being maybe an inventory control or some type of control where they can help out others. 13% of the company's total revenue comes from commissions, and this is pretty much kind of like that third-party seller that Amazon has, where Amazon makes up 19% of total revenue, Alibaba makes up 13%. The other 22% comes from others, and this total makes up 62% of the total revenue from Alibaba. But first, let's take a look what others is. Others, if you, again, pretty much all the information, if you guys ever want to get information, is pretty much in their earnings presentation. Others revenue under China Commerce is primarily generated by our new retail and direct sell business, comprising mainly of Tmall supermarket. And so we can see, right, this is pretty much more of physical stores, similar to what Amazon has with Whole Food Markets. Alibaba has actually something similar. They have a Tmall supermarket and they have this Fresh Shippo type company, and it's pretty much just like a super smart store where you have unmanned check kiosk, mobile scan product details, fast running fulfillment conveyor belts, and this is just like a super powered supermarket, and I honestly would like to see how one of these look like. And let's keep looking at the revenue breakdown for Alibaba. There's pretty much the other just comes, other small portion comes from another 20% of this company's total revenue comes from either some form of logistics services, customer services, wholesales, international wholesales, international retail. But again, that's only 20% and that makes up 82%. The other 11% comes from cloud and computing. So Alibaba is also in the clouding market. Then we have digital media and entertainment, which is pretty much some form of, they do have like some form of social platform, and they do have some form of video streaming platform, and that makes up 5% of this company's total revenue. And then similar to Amazon, they have others, which is just a whole bunch of different businesses, and that makes up 2%. But the real ones I really want to talk about is 11% of the cloud and computing, and then pretty much 62 comes in from China commerce, and 20 comes from almost every other little commerce type details. So we can see how the revenue breakdown for something like Amazon is different from Alibaba. All right, so like I said, right now we're taking a look at the company's revenue breakdown, and here I just really want to see how this company's total revenue looks like, and if the breakdown makes some form of sense, or if it's too heavy into one item. Right, both of these companies are in some form of e-commerce business, so obviously their business breakdown, their revenue breakdown is going to be very, very heavily focused on some form of commerce market. And that's what we saw, right? We see pretty much over 82% of the company's total revenue from Alibaba is made up of some form of commerce type business, and for Amazon it's almost no difference, right? We have close to about, I want to say 80%, similar to Alibaba, also made up of some form of stores or online stores type revenue, and they both have some form of low teen type services from the clouding network. So both of them I think have a pretty good revenue breakdown overall, and for that reason, for this point, I'm gonna actually give 1 point to both Amazon and Alibaba. Next, I'm gonna take a look at revenue growth, and then we're gonna take a look at the company's margins growth. So in revenue growth, I'm in this amazing website known as lazyfa.com, and I just want to see the revenue of Amazon in the past 5 years. So in 2019, Amazon's revenue grew about 20% compared to 18. In 18, it grew 30% compared to 17, and in 17, it grew another 30% compared to 16. Now, let's take a look at Alibaba's revenue breakdown for revenue growth for the past 3 years. So for the past 3 years, in 2019, Alibaba's revenue grew about 50%. In 2018, it grew about 58%, and in 2017, it grew about 56%. So like I said, both these companies have shown really strong revenue growth, right? But obviously we can see Alibaba's revenue is a lot higher than Amazon. So for that reason, I'm going to have to give a point to Alibaba on this one. And this is actually pretty crazy. This is actually a pretty tight match right now. Amazon has 2 points and Alibaba has 2 points as well. Next, let's take a look at margin growth, and then followed by the overall business. So in margin growth, we're going to take a look very similar to what we just did in revenue growth, and see how this company's margins have changed throughout the years. And first, let's start off with Amazon. Amazon gross margin is right now sitting at a 41% for 2019. The first thing I can see here from Amazon is we're seeing a huge increase every year for that gross margins, and that's actually pretty impressive. The other thing I see is profit margins. Amazon, unfortunately, is not doing really good in profit margins, but this is to be expected, right? Profit margins for Amazon in theory should be lower than Alibaba's, because Alibaba is more of a business to consumer type product where they have higher margins, opposed to Amazon where it's a business to consumer, and business to consumer has usually lower profit margins. So profit margins for Amazon were about 4.1%, and throughout the years we see this profit margins going from almost break even to a little bit above break even, but it's still not a thing. So one thing I do like about Amazon's margins right now is we're seeing a growth in both gross margins and profit margins, and that's a great thing. Now let's take a look at Alibaba's margins. So Alibaba's margins, the first thing I see is they're a lot higher than Amazon, especially that profit margin. The profit margin for Alibaba is about 23.2, where Amazon is barely making any money, making only 4.1% of its total revenue. Alibaba's making up 23.2%. So Alibaba's profit margins is a lot higher. Their gross margins are kind of similar. Gross margins for Alibaba are 45%. Gross margins for Amazon is 41%. The one thing I don't like about Alibaba is their gross margins seem to be decreasing over time, and that's definitely not something you want to see as an investor, right? Anytime you see margins decreasing, that's to me not a good sign. And we're seeing pretty much the same thing on profit margins for some trend. We're also seeing a decrease there. So this one's actually pretty hard, and I think I'm gonna have to give a point to both Amazon and Alibaba. And the reason I'm doing this is because, look, first, margin growth. Overall, Amazon is seeing an increase in both gross margins and profit margins, and I'm liking that in Amazon. But in Alibaba, we're already seeing a strong profit margin growth, and we're seeing a strong gross margin growth, but unfortunately those are going down. So both of them have something good and bad amongst themselves. I do prefer Amazon's a little bit more, but I think it's fair to give a point to both of them. All right, so next let's take a look at overall business, and after that we're going to take a look at at both these companies' balance sheet. And overall business, to me, this is pretty much my thoughts on what I think about each company. And one thing I do like, let me be honest, to me, I do see a growth in the e-commerce world, and I do think both these companies are really strong for that. One for business to consumer side, one's to a business and product side. To me, my answer here is the growth in clouding world. I think the clouding world is a lot stronger, and that's where things are really gonna start seeing. That's where I'm really bullish in. And I do like that Amazon has a form of esports as well, where they have Twitch. Alibaba might be in the esports realm, but it's nowhere near in the Twitch level. Amazon Prime Twitch is the biggest streaming platform in the United States, maybe in the world, where Alibaba is not in a platform like that right now. So I am leaning on Amazon a bit, but let's take a look at that clouding market. So in the clouding market, and this is information from Statista, and we can see Q4 of 2019, Amazon's web server makes up 33% of the clouding market. And this is good. I'm just gonna, if you're listening to the podcast, let me tell you the other ones. The second in line is Microsoft with 18%. Third in line is Google with 8%. Fourth is IBM with 6%. Fifth is Alibaba with 5%. Salesforce is actually there with 3%. Oracle is there with 2%, and Tencent is there with 2%. So if you guys even think about clouding networks, these are the 7, 6, 8, whatever, how many companies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 8 companies that you should definitely be taking a look at. And I'm happy to say I'm pretty much in almost all these companies, minus Alibaba or Amazon, which is the leader, but I'm in the other one. So that's at least I'm somewhere in this clouding market where I am very bullish in. But to me, seeing Amazon being the world leader in the clouding market by 33%, way ahead Alibaba's, to me, I'm gonna give my business point, overall business, to Amazon at the moment. So Amazon has taken the lead, and now let's take a look at these companies' balance sheet. And next, we're going to take a look at valuation in both price to earnings ratio and price to sales ratio. All right, so first let's take a look at Amazon's most recent balance sheet, and I just really much want to do a quick overview of this company and pretty much do that current, just to see cash compared to company's total debt. And this company has $27 billion in cash, and it has $22 billion in current investments, so pretty much close to $50 billion in quick cash. This company does have about $63 billion in non-current debt. And to me, this is actually not a bad balance sheet at all, right? Because this company's amount of cash that it has right now is a lot. Is even though it's weaker than the non-current debt, is still enough to pay a huge portion. And I went even further to take a look at when most of Amazon's bills are due. And one of the biggest bills are senior notes that this company owns. Out of that $60 billion, $23 billion is notes due to investors. The other are pretty much just long-term lease investments. So those really don't count to me. This is what I'm really focused on. And this company doesn't really have any heavy debt, and most of this company's heavy debt is actually after 2024. So to me, this company is definitely has a strong balance sheet in relations to cash and any form of type of bills due in the next 2 to 3 years. So Amazon definitely has a very strong balance sheet. Next, I want to take a look at Alibaba's balance sheet. And we're going to do the same thing. First, let's start off, let me zoom in so you guys can see. Let's start off with cash and short-term investments. This company has about $46 billion in cash and about $4 billion in cash in some form of short-term investment. And it has, so that pretty much makes up about $50 billion that this company has in some form of quick cash. Now let's take a look at this company's total liabilities. This company has about $1 billion in short-term borrowings, and then it has $5 billion in about $6 billion in bank borrowings, and about $12 billion in unsecured notes. So close to $20 billion in similar debt same to Amazon. So to me, both of these companies have a very, very strong balance sheet as well. They both are companies that have enough cash to withstand any type of hurdles, and that's what you want to make sure, right? You want to make sure that these companies' balance sheets show that, hey, if something bad happens, they'll still be able to continue their everyday activities, and both of them are showing that. And for that reason, I'm actually gonna have to give a point to both of them. So I think Amazon is ahead one right now, but it is definitely a pretty close match, and I can see why investors do like both of these companies. So now let's jump at a whole different gate. And let's take a look at forward price to earnings ratio. And after this, we're going to take a look at forward price to sales ratio for both of these companies. All right, so now we're taking a look at these companies' forward PE ratio, and let's start off with Amazon. Amazon, as we saw, right, had a very low profit margin, so that's going to show us that this company will be more expensive. Taking a look at a forward PE ratio. So for December 2021, this company is expected to make $38. That gives this company a forward PE ratio of 64. 64 is pretty high, but we are seeing this company's margins continue to increase. So I do think this forward PE ratio, as the years progress to continue, will continue to go down. Alibaba is on a different story though. That forward PE ratio is 18.9. And that's actually pretty impressive. This is actually a lot cheaper if we're taking a look at forward PE ratio for 2022. And to be honest, I thought Alibaba would be more expensive, especially because Alibaba's revenue is growing at a faster rate than Amazon. But it's not, right. Alibaba, if we take a look at that forward PE ratio, is a lot cheaper. So here the point is gonna go to Alibaba. Alibaba has tied it up, and now let's take a look at forward price to sales ratio. So forward price to sales ratio, let's start off with Amazon. Amazon in 2021 is expected to make $406 billion, which gives us a forward price to sales ratio of about 3. Alibaba, on the other hand, is expected to make $116 billion, about 4 times less than Amazon. But remember, their customers are different. Alibaba is more of business to business, where Amazon is business to consumer. Forward price to sales ratio for Alibaba is about 4.77, where forward price to sales ratio for Amazon is about 3.0. Even though Amazon's forward price to sales ratio is cheaper, I'm gonna have to give the point to Alibaba here. And this is the reason. Alibaba's margins are a lot better than Amazon's by a long shot. This company is already making money. This company's profit margins are getting better. But unfortunately, their margins continue to decrease. If we do see this decrease, eventually Amazon is continuing to increase. So this was actually pretty hard. I'm actually pretty stumped here because, right, the forward price to sales ratio for Amazon is cheaper, but Amazon's margin is lower, a lot lower. But their margins are improving year to year. Alibaba, on the other hand, has way better margins, so the forward price to sales ratio should actually be higher than Amazon's, and it's not that much higher. So I believe Alibaba's forward price to sales ratio is better. But with Alibaba, we consecutively a decrease in their margins, which is not a good thing. So To here, I honestly, this one is actually, I don't know, it's really hard for me to decide, but I'm gonna have to go with Alibaba on this one, and I think Alibaba's actually winning right now with 6 points. And my thoughts. So this is where I'm gonna make a game changer, and now I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna hate me for this episode. All right, so the final one is actually gonna be my thoughts, and this one is actually pretty hard. Again, I have overall business and my thoughts, and these are pretty much just the way I view the company, and this just helps me see which one I'm more bullish on. This might seem pretty crazy, and you guys might hate me for this because I'm pretty much gonna make this a tie. I'm gonna give my thoughts on Amazon, and again, I'm just gonna reiterate what I said with the overall business. Very bullish in the clouding market, very bullish in the esports market. Overall, this company's margins are increasing, where we see a decrease in Alibaba's margins. Balance sheet, both of them had very strong balance sheet. Both of them will be able to survive a long time, even though the forward PE ratio and the forward price to sales ratio are better on the Alibaba side. I do think in the future returns, Amazon will eventually provide better results than that. So for me, I'm gonna have to give it to Amazon, and this makes it a tie with 6 points to Amazon and 6 points to Alibaba. So yeah, like I said, right, this is a tie, guys. And again, right, just because one of these companies was supposed to be a winner and losers did not mean that any of these companies were a bad investment, right? That wasn't the point of this video. For me, it was just to see where I could put my money if I wanted to. Would I put it in Amazon or would I put it in Alibaba? To be honest, because both my thoughts and the overall business points went to Amazon, in theory, I am a little bit more bullish on Amazon just with my gut feeling. So I would put a little bit more money on Amazon, but I wouldn't think Alibaba is a bad investment either to have. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Like I said, let me know which one you guys want me to take a look at next. Which one, a Google versus Amazon, and Activision versus EA Games, or maybe a Microsoft versus Apple. Like always, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the thumbs up, and the bell. It helps the small channel out so much, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you guys, take care, and see you next time.